Mikel Arteta has been a total disaster, and losing to Villareal in the Europa League semi-final is further proof. Football fans, welcome to a special edition of the Positively Uncensored Arsenal podcast. I'm your host Shotta, together with my usual comrade in arms, Blackburn George, the Arse Blagger. Stay tuned for more. Blackburn George, my friend, welcome to this special edition of the Positively Uncensored Arsenal, of the post Arsenal Villareal edition. And I invited you and suggested to you that we must do this podcast because, in my opinion, the failure to meet the Europa League final, and in fact, I think we both have the opinion, is one of the biggest disasters that has faced Arsenal Football Club in recent times. Am I wrong or right? Am I overstating the point, George?
No, you're right, but I do feel a bit like a vulture feeding off the carcass of a dead manager.
Well,
you know and gloating about it. It's horrible. It's a terrible day, a terrible night last night. And I'm not sure the reality is bitten yet for the majority of the fan base, just what a disaster this is. We'll talk about it, no doubt, shortly, but finding an answer is now very, very difficult, especially when we won't accept what the problems are that need to be rectified. Arteta still has a considerable backing, apparently, with the club and the fan base.
Yes.
And to me, this is staggering. But we've just had an election in this country, a by-election, where the Tories have swept a Labour stronghold, despite all the absolute carnage that they've created over the last 12 months. They've got more popular. So the people, normal people, don't seem to care about how well things are done. They must be thinking about something else, you know. And Arsenal fans, you look at the table, look at the results, look at the way we play, and then conclude, give him more time and more money. What the fuck's that? You know, it's like 2 and 2 is 4. No, it's not. It's 8, and I don't fucking care what you say. I'm having 8. You know, it's...
Well, you know, George, it's a very complex psychology here at work, and I'm not going to, you know, sit at the couch and try to give the answers. But football-wise, you and I for a whole year said to people, we won the FA Cup. By the way, they're also giving Arteta credit for the charity shield. But we won the FA Cup playing negative football, sitting back and counter-attacking teams that were better than us. Yesterday we had Villareal came up to our place with a plan. Their plan was to sit back and not to allow Arsenal to many chances at counter-attack. They recognized that they were the inferior team. And George, I saw an instance, for instance, many a time, back kicks by the goalie, and they keep 2 defenders next to him. That was like when we played in 1970, when I played football in the late 1970s or mid-70s. That's to tell you how old I am. As a kid, when we played competitive football, your defender and your goalie was horrible, and you kept 2 defenders behind him. And, for example, your best kicker was the one who took the back kick. So you always had 3, 4, or 5 people. And I was like, Jesus, these are ancient tactics. What do you think of how they set up?
Well, I think it's funny, really, because, I mean, Emery tried to give us a lift. He played the reserve goalkeeper. The guy couldn't catch a cold.
he dropped almost everything. Go ahead, George. Go ahead.
I don't think I've ever seen a worse goalkeeper. And we tested him by having 2 shots in target, one in each half. I mean, fuck's sake, he tried to give us a lift.
Yes.
Francis Coughlin tried to help us out, giving free kicks away on the edge of the box. They did everything they could to help us get over the line. It was embarrassing. I mean, it really was embarrassing. And I see a lot of people today blaming the players. Oh, they haven't got fight. Oh, there's no passion. Oh, well, hang on a minute. Wouldn't it be a coincidence if 20-odd players just all happened to have no passion and fight at the same time in a club? What's the chances of that happening? These guys have strived all their lives to get to the top because they're winners. They want to be the best.
Right.
They want to excel. They're not all of a sudden going to say, you know what, I can't be bothered with this game anymore. Maybe you would get the odd one that, having got to the top and got the income, would lose interest and not be the player he was years ago. But not all the fucking lot of them. When it's everybody concerned, when everybody looks poor, when everybody is getting worse, it's not the players. It cannot be the players. Logic tells me it's the system and the setup within the club, the management setup within the club. And that doesn't necessarily mean only Arteta. I can understand that there's people above him that are affecting things as well. But to excuse Arteta altogether, this is the new meme that it doesn't matter who we get, while Kroenke's here, nothing will get better. What a load of horseshit.
Of course it's horseshit. The fact is that Kroenke listened to the media and to the fans who told him that Arsene Wenger was past it. And it was time to get rid of him totally, and the way that he managed the club. And within 3 months of him, of Wenger leaving, what you may call him was also gone, and they brought in Don that crook Don Raoul. They got rid of Michelin Stat, who was supposed to be all of that structure that on the face of it looked like it could work, and it has been downhill ever since. If you recall, George, people, you know why I say this, George? I know you recall, but people's memories are so short. You're flummoxed. You're speechless.
I always thought what happened was that Ivan Gazidis was in a bit of a power struggle with Arsene for a few years.
Oh, yes.
Because Arsene was the top dog.
Yes.
And I think Gazidis thought he should be the top dog. And he chipped away, and eventually, when Arsene got his last contract, he gave over some of the power to Gazidis.
Right.
And from that point, we started going downhill.
You remember Gazidis? Had an office down at the Colony? I remember commenting on it. I mean, what the cheek? You are supposed to be in London doing administrative work, and they had improved Colony. They had created more administrative offices down there. That's supposed to be the training ground. And he had an office down there. He's the boss, and he's gonna watch over stuff. And I remember saying, "This is bullshit."
Exactly. So that was where it started going wrong. We weren't giving Arsene the players he wanted. We were buying them on Stats DNA. Anyway.
Yeah.
At that point, we started. There's no doubt about it. Arsene's last few years were less successful, but he had given some of his power away. So Gazidis got what he wanted. He did the power grab, and then when Arsene left, he got even more power. And I honestly believe that a few months into it, he thought, "Fucking hell, what have I done here?" Arsene was doing all this. I don't want all this responsibility. It's going to be on my time. I'm off. And whoa, and he went. And at that point, we made a further mistake by appointing even worse than him.
Yes, precisely.
And like you said, Don Raul, he was a mistake.
And
I think Vinaz. Now, I mean, what a wishy-washy character he
oh
is.
my goodness, George. I mean, he to me, George, and I stay from a distance, but I can read this guy psychologically. He's a yes man, a bean counter, a colorless man who got locked out, and he will say and do anything and pretending he's a football man. He's simply a goddamn bean counter. Probably a good one, yes, but he should be nowhere near being a CEO of a major football club like Arsenal. And it is, as you say, disaster after disaster. And now we've reached a point, George, where as you said last week, we are £100 million in the hole. We are out of Europe, and we are going to finish either between 9th and 11th. I'm going to give, and if the mood of the club strikes me, it could probably be more 11th than anything else. And I don't know where we are going after this. The owner is not going to put a lot of money is not going to put his own money in the club. It has always been run on a self-sustaining basis. And all these people who think he's going to sell up to Daniel Ek for £1.2 billion are lunatics. It's not going to happen. Your thought on that, George?
Yeah, well, that's the problem. Yeah, I can identify the problems, but nobody can identify a way forward. And I'm one of those. It's easy to point the finger and say it's Arteta's fault, it's Kroenke's fault, it's the players' fault. Well, how do you solve that problem? As I said before, the only way out of it is massive spending. And we know that's not going to happen. That's just not going to happen. So where do we go?
George, it reminds me of the problem and the crossroads that Lerner. You remember Randy Lerner when he was at Aston Villa?
Yeah.
And somebody brought that back up this week. A good friend friend of ours. Then he posts what's in a name on your. He posts a lot on your blog, and a lot on Twitter. And he spent a lot of money to crash into the Champions League. And who was standing between him and that? Arsenal. He would always end up fifth. It always the money he spent. I remember one year they were making a run for it ahead of us, and we met them, and Leb tortured them that day. We trashed them, and it ended the run that they were on. And what he did, he went and he took this guy that we had for marketing and made him the CEO, and as he was reorganizing the club, and it was when they got rid of that big African fella from Norway, or he had finished his run, it was downhill all the way. He was spending and ending up lower and lower in the tables. He appointed all kinds of coaches who were not fit for the purpose. You need to you at that crossroads. You decide: am I going to be a team that I'm going to rebuild this team from scratch, or am I going to start throwing money after old players like Willian, like the Suarez, and so on, and like David Luiz, players who, yes, they might help you come 10th or 11th or even, but they are not the future, and that, I fear, is what is going to happen to Arsenal. I wonder. I don't know if you share this opinion.
Yeah, it's a
John, by the way, guys. By the way, George, I was racking my memory. John Carew, if you remember that big old Norwegian fellow, yeah, go ahead. And then they got Agbang Lahore and a whole lot. Where did they go?
We've got you got to realise how the path ahead is so difficult,
right?
Because like I said, Kroenke's not going to spend his own money, but you can't say we haven't spent money. I mean, Lacazette, 50-odd million. Aubameyang, 60-odd million. Partey, 50-odd million. We've been spending.
We spent $120 million last summer, George.
Yeah, we've been spending. It's